All right, so the main event ended with new tag team champions, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. We'll get into that in a bit, Chris. But let's start with what I wasn't necessarily expecting Friday night after SmackDown ended, which is Cody addressing Rock's proposal for his soul before Elimination Chamber, because Rock said, I want to see your answer then. And Cody had a chance to answer it tonight, and he didn't. I thought it was a clever way to get Cody on TV, draw ratings. Seth coming out. There's a history in WWE of like baby faces interrupting another wrestler as they're about to say something really valuable, and fans understandably could be like, couldn't you have waited 30 seconds? They were about to say something. But at least in this case, it seemed like Seth was trying to intercept Cody and make sure that he understood this is not an offer that he should consider. And he made his case about his own regrets. So I liked the segment, but I am a little concerned that Cody said something, multiple things, and then also a lack of things, which is hell no. I'm not selling my soul to anybody. He could have led with that. But he also talked about his dad, Dusty, working indies into his 60s as a way to say, I don't want that to be me, which made it almost seem like Cody's thinking maybe some extra social media followers and bit part movies, like Seth said, would be good for him to just shore things up, considering he's only made, $5 to $10 million the last, each of the last couple of years, give or take. So, Chris, your thoughts on some of the points that I made there about Cody's segment tonight?
Yeah, I thought, first of all, it's good to interject the him versus Seth possibility for WrestleMania. So that's good. Yeah. I mean, again, I agree. I think Cody, he could just say no. I mean, sometimes I kind of get annoyed with the WWE elongating. We're going to stretch this out. It also doesn't make sense because The Rock asked for his answer at Elimination Chamber, which means Rock's not there. So what was he coming to say? Like, why are you... I feel like this is like a private conversation that maybe you don't need to have out in public if you're trying to decide what to do. Also, again, I know he said something like Good Guy 101 is not supposed to do this. And I'm like, well, watching wrestling long enough, Good Guy 101 does not take the heel offer immediately. He or she might get beat up for it, but Good Guy 101 means you say no and then you live with the consequences. So yes. I think he's talking himself into way too much, and it just muddles everything anyway. Obviously, Seth has a interesting character in it. He's not always the voice of reason because he always has his own history that we brought up against him. But I feel like he did a good job here, at least try to play to Cody's, I helped you once. I know kind of how you can be. Don't go down this road.
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, there were things I definitely liked about this segment. And overall, I liked the segment. But my concern is just, Cody, just either don't appear on TV, or if you do get interrupted as it appears you're on the verge of quickly saying, hell no, there's no way that I'll do this. And that's a part where it's just like, it was that sort of like, well, maybe I should because my dad in his 60s was poor and had to, work for supporting his family. So, but I thought Seth was strong in that segment. I liked Seth going, these things that I've done almost make me hate myself. Don't do that. And they talked about their history. And then, as you mentioned, Chris, something that they've been doing a good job on is basically entertaining on television. And they did this in the Rumble too. All the realistic and semi-realistic possibilities of who could win the chamber and what would happen next. And that's good. There used to be a sense of a philosophy within WWE booking that you never want to get people excited about something that isn't going to happen. And I like that they've abandoned that. And now they want to get people thinking about so many things happening. They don't get their heart set on any one thing, but they also don't see that there's just one narrow road that everything is inevitably heading towards. So that's a good thing. And Seth going, when I face you at WrestleMania, I want it to be for this version of Cody, not this other version of Cody. Let's step back for a second, because you and I haven't talked since Friday about Rock's promo, and that is a big talking point, rightfully so. We had a lot of people watching us live on Friday night, and since then, we did a 2.5 hour show, the vast majority of which was dissecting Rock's bizarre promo, sort of embracing the psychosis of the on-air version of what we've seen in him the last year or so. I want to get your thoughts on what we saw on Friday, and both Rock's heavily criticized performance going in and out of character, babyface heel, And some positives that you might have taken from that too, if you're leaning that way. And then also how Cody handled that night as opposed to tonight when he was actually facing Rock.
I think, well, the one joke I want to say, I think I regretted that when I proposed to my wife almost 11 years ago, I did not ask her to be my champion. I don't know if anyone in the chat wants to, if whether you've been proposed to or proposed to, if you were asked to be someone's champion, if that would have been a good way to go. I mean, I think this entire thing is meandering. Just the Rock's presence of, I'm going to help you get into movies, which is, again, WWE has tons of wrestlers going into movies all the time. They're all in commercials. So, yes, obviously The Rock is a successful actor more than anyone else, but it's not like you can't be in Cody already had his own show, 2 shows on TBS. I think The Rock character on TV is almost nonsensical at this point. I think he wants to be cheered, but he also wants to do the final boss, and therefore he's kind of all over the place. As I said kind of earlier, I think Cody should have rejected him immediately. I can kind of understand the sort of like being taken aback and I'll answer you at Elimination Chamber. It would have made a lot more sense if he didn't come back today. If it was sort of like Rock called him out, it didn't make any sense. I'm kind of taken aback. I don't know what to do, but I will give him my answer next week. For him to come out now, it actually makes it worse because it seems like he's actually contemplating what The Rock said. And, that's not really, good guy 101.
Exactly. Chat room chiming in with a few comments about some of the things we're saying and their thoughts on the question I posed to you. Lady B said, I hope Dwayne and Brian Gewirtz watch this video package and think, wow, that's all we needed to say to get the point across. We should have cut the rest. What do you think of their edit of the recap? The edit of the promo from SmackDown on Friday tonight.
Yeah, I feel it cut out. It got to the really important part, which I think all the Rock promos seem to be he's going to go on forever. And I know obviously, WWE, when they do their highlight packages, they're only going to show parts of the promos, but it actually kind of stuck to the point, and it was probably better than the whole thing because if you didn't see it, there's like a logical point of what he's making, and all the other stuff that kind of made it either bizarre or nonsensical is kind of taken out of it.
Yeah. Kyle Fassel just says, I was shocked to see Cody tonight, honestly. Were you surprised to see Cody? Do you think after what we saw tonight, it was a good or bad decision with hindsight of having seen the positives of Seth and the pitch he made to Cody, but some of the negatives of he could have just said, hell no, and I'll see you Saturday, and I'm not changing my mind. Show up if you want to. Just get people excited about Cody saying no. The answer is no, and I'm saying no to your face on Saturday, so show up. To me, that would have been a rallying cry and more in tune with Cody's character.
Yeah, I was surprised. I think I'd stepped away from the TV for a second to grab something else I heard. And coming out the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and I was like, why? I was trying to figure out, we have the women's tag match, maybe there's another match. But I'm like, what are you coming out to do? I mean, again, I just don't think he's been such an attempt at a pure babyface. I don't think it makes sense. I think it hurts him to be like, I'm actually considering this. I think, again, as I said before, if he was, you could sort of play off I was shocked at The Rock's initial promo. I didn't know what happened. It caught me off guard. But
yes,
I sat at home by myself or with my family or whatever. We went over and I said no. But when you come out, it's going to make the no look weaker because there's a possibility he may have said yes.
I think there was a way for Cody to address it and say, here's what people have been telling me my reaction should be to Rock's proposal. Think about your dad. Think about your mom. Think about your kids and your nephews. Think about your schedule. Think about the wear and tear mentally and physically that this last year people have observed I have gone through. And Cody can talk in that cadence. But talking a cadence, it doesn't sound like he's talking from his heart, but he's reciting what all these people have told him in the last 72 hours. And right when it looks like he's about to give his opinion on what other people are telling him, boom, Seth comes out, dominates the conversation, and we don't get an answer. I think there's a little more cover to that. To me, this came across more like Cody sharing with us his internal thoughts. And I think the way to save that is just have Cody go, here's what everyone's been telling me. Don't look like he's not going to answer. It's Cody. He can be a little chatty, so he can be a little inductive instead of deductive. He doesn't give his answer and explain why. He likes to tell a story leading up to his answer that would not be out of character for Cody. So that, to me, there was like kind of an easy fix. And I could go back and rewatch. Maybe their argument would be they made that case. That's not the impression I got. I got the impression this was more Cody saying he's given me things to think about rather than here's what other people are telling me I should be thinking about. And I think that difference is significant. I don't think it's a huge deal. People are still going to tune in Saturday, but and perhaps let's entertain this possibility. They might realize there's not a lot of harm here. Cody's still good. He took the selfie with a kid. He's still the people's champion. He says all the right things. He will on Saturday. But we want to lay some groundwork for a possible 2 years from now Cody heel turn. And they want to have something where they can point back and someone can go, Cody, you thought about what Rock offered you back then. Everyone was shocked, or at least that's what we thought. It sure came. So they may be playing, 3D chess here in terms of we're going to be fine. There's the obvious thing Cody should do. We're not going to do the obvious thing because we want to lay the groundwork. We want to lay the groundwork for an option a card we might want to play later. That's giving them a huge benefit of the doubt. But I'll throw it out there because, we are early in the Levesque booking era still, and maybe that's in play.
Yeah, I think to me the whole situation kind of muddies the Elimination Chamber anyway. It's, Logan Paul, CM Punk, Seth Rollins are all talking about how they want to face Cody. What does that mean if he's The Rock's champion? Does that mean that The Rock's going to run in on the match or whatever? I feel like it's taking too much attention away now that they have that kind of set up with the Elimination Chamber wrestler facing Cody. It puts an extra layer I don't think is needed. And I also think that, maybe you're planting the seed 2 years from now, but I think there are other ways to do that don't muddle your current WrestleMania that's in whatever it is, 54 days, whatever said it was. You can do that in a way to not muddle up your the biggest show of the year that's coming up in less than 2 months.
Yep. All right. We got more chat room comments, and we'll get to them in a moment. I'll say Andrew H is already on the screen here. Cody takes way too long to get to the point. Tell us what time it is. Don't tell us how to build the watch. And Four Eyes Malone says Cody long pause Rhodes. I'm not down on Cody's cadence. I think it could serve him in a promo like this. It's part of his distinction. But we'll get to more chat room comments. Let's pause. Let's formally introduce the show. And then we'll get to those chat room comments. We got some callers waiting to join the show. Also, we'll check the mailbag too, and continue to talk about other aspects of the show, including that tag team title change at the end of tonight's show. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Monday, February 24th, 2025, and I'm Wade Keller, host of the show. I'm the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com. If you haven't read it yet, my story on the Rock situation, who knew what when regarding this storyline, is up. It's at the top of the page. Put it up late Friday night, and I think it has more information than pretty much anything else out there in terms of those details. So another reason to just make sure PWTorch.com is a daily stop, not only for breaking news coverage, including insights into some of the bigger stories in WWE and TNA, but AEW, I meant to say, but also articles we won't find anywhere else. Real thoughtful, well-written articles, in-depth analysis from a great team of contributors. Flashback articles from 5, 10, 20, even my 30 years ago Raw reports we post up on PWTorch.com. Also live pay-per-view and PLE coverage, including Elimination Chamber this Saturday. My report and Brandon LeClaire's report will both be on the site. Links on the sidebar on our desktop site to our podcasts and access to archives. A lot of great stuff. Hope you're checking it out. PWTorch.com. It's not a cookie-cutter site like a lot of other just kind of news headline clickbait SEO driven corporate owned sites. It's got personality, history, a perspective on the wrestling business that I think is distinct, and a wide array of opinions without hedging. We're not like out trying to take sides because we have one favorite team we're rooting for, and we're also not holding back for fear of whatever a wrestler being mad and not giving us an interview or promoter. So I think that all comes across in our content. Hope you'll check it out on a regular basis if you're discovering our brand on YouTube. PWTorch.com, another part of that brand. So we are here live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering on the Wade Keller Post Show, live on YouTube, and then also on our long-running podcast, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show feed. Search Wade Keller in your podcast app to subscribe if you want to get the podcast version. That includes flashback episodes from 5, 10, and 15 years ago of past shows we've done that are also exclusively on the podcast feed. You can also watch us live right after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown end every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the PWTorch YouTube channel. Please like and follow and even set an alarm for when our shows go live. You can subscribe to our channel. We encourage, of course, you commenting below. There's always a fun conversation to be had after our shows in the comments area if you watch us on demand. And as always, it helps the algorithm if you like the show in addition to commenting on it. So we ask that of you if you're willing to do that. The way to subscribe to our podcasts is search Wade Keller in your podcast app. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever iOS or Android app you use. You can also stream them directly from PWTorch.com if you prefer that method. It's desktop friendly and also phone browser friendly. When you search Wade Keller, the red logo pops up. That's our post show. A blue logo pops up. That's our flagship tomorrow. Greg Parks, Pro Wrestling Torch columnist and podcast host and co-host, is scheduled to join me on the flagship. So we'll get his take on the Rock Cody situation, preview AEW Dynamite, and more. If you have email questions, comments, or rants, send them to wadekellerpodcast at pwtorch.com. Excuse me, wadekellerpodcast at gmail.com, not the PWTorch address. Wadekellerpodcast at gmail.com. And that will... We'll read them and consider tonight, if you're watching us live, reading your email on the air or else on the flagship tomorrow. We're recording tomorrow night, so you got time all day Tuesday to send us questions or comments for the flagship. My co-host tonight is Christopher Maitland. He is part of the PWTorch Dailycast podcast lineup. We encourage you to also subscribe to our PWTorch Dailycast lineup with different shows each day of the week with different themes focused on AEW, NXT, WWE, major events like our Wrestling Night in America pay-per-view and PLE post shows. The PWTorch 90s Past Cast, looking back at a Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter from 30 years ago this week. Really fun show with Alex and Patrick going in-depth on what I wrote about and what our team was writing about back then. And also, Wrestling Coast to Coast, Christopher Maitland is part of that show. Chris, welcome. Good to have you back. Talk about your podcast and what your subject matter is, what's coming up this week, what you did last week. Encourage people to search PWTorch in their podcast app to subscribe.
Sure. So I'm Chris Maitland. I host Wrestling Coast to Coast. I was smart enough to put the handle now on the page so it pops up with my very good friend.
Which I just blocked with your logo.
Yes, it's all right. It'll be up there after.
He'll be back.
My very good friend of 25 plus years, Justin McClellan. We talk about a different independent wrestling show every week. Last week, we discussed West Side Gun, one of his first shows that he did in Chicago last year that just showed up on YouTube with the MVP as the commissioner. So that was interesting. And we're going to be doing a show from Freelance Wrestling this week. There's actually a connection to WWE that next week's show, we're going to cover the first episode of WWE Evolve, because a lot of WWE ID wrestlers are independent wrestlers that we've covered on our show. So we want to cover the first episode and see how that goes. So yeah, every week Justin and we discuss a different independent show, kind of just review it like any other show would be reviewed, what we like, what we don't like. Are they, who's appearing on the show from different promotions? Are they buying people in with the way they present the show? Are there any other wrestlers we think are going to be big stars? And now with the WWE ID program, we're very interested to see how that goes forward with the independent scene. WWE did mention they have WWE ID championships, so we'll see what they do with that. But yeah, that show comes out every Wednesday night. And we also talk about if Hiroki Goto ever wins the IWGP title, which he did. So we talked about that a couple of weeks ago when he won.
Excellent. Kyle says, by the way, I listened to the show last week for the first time, Chris. Good stuff. So good to have Kyle joining as a listener. He says, not enough reputable coverage of the indies out there. Excellent. So search PWTorch, subscribe. The colorful PWTorch Dailycast logo pops up, and that is free also. So, go subscribe away on your phone if you are into podcasts, and follow us on YouTube and watch us here. There's limited content on YouTube, our live post shows. Frank Pettiani's Wrestling Then and Now. We'll expand that as time goes on, but most of our content, new and some of our really cool flashbacks, are exclusively on the podcast feeds and the PWTorch Dailycast. Different show each day of the week. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't yet. Okay. I mentioned we have live callers on hold. We'll get to a couple of them soon. You can be a live caller on the show, audio only. If you want to turn your camera off, totally fine, or leave the camera on. Totally up to you. You have to be a Patreon supporter or a VIP member to be a video caller. We're just trying to limit how much that overwhelms the show. I want to give a little perk to our VIP members and Patreon supporters. You can support us on Patreon. Just search PWTorch. You can get a free trial of the VIP benefits, the VIP podcast benefits, if you go to search PWTorch either in Patreon or on Spotify, and you get a 7-day free trial. So that's one way to go, and then you can become a video caller, or you can become a full VIP member. Full details on that at pwtorch.com/govip. The full VIP membership gives you access to our ad-free website and unlocks 35 plus years of archives of podcasts, hundreds of retro radio shows in the 1990s, including my run on KFAN radio with the Pro Wrestling Focus radio show with big name guests, and then also our back issues of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, nearly 2,000 of them, dating back to the late 1980s. All right, we have a super chat on the screen, or that I'm about to put up on the screen, and I'll read it for our podcast listeners. We always appreciate super chats, by the way. They get our attention, and we appreciate the tip jar. Cash Priestley and Oakley Stars says, corporate CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes at Mania is my prediction. A lot of rumors, a lot of speculation. Some, seems out there. Some of it seems, that could happen. Is that good or bad regarding WrestleMania? Is that, Chris, a viable speculative direction this could go, where CM Punk sides with the corporation or The Rock? He becomes TKO Punk. I don't know. Against babyface Cody. Is there a path to that in your mind?
He'd have to wear a different shirt, because today he wore a shirt for the Chicago Teachers Union, which I thought was very interesting based off of certain people, the jobs they're going for right now. I don't see
points.
I don't see corporate CM Punk. I feel like we're gonna get CM Punk Logan Paul as a match. Mm-hmm. Only because I feel like there's more interest there. I mean, that may not be what a lot of fans want CM Punk to be in the main event, but I just don't. This may be something, but if Cody does turn heel, it makes it an easier path for someone like John Cena to wrestle him for the title. So that's what corporate Punk doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. This Is Not Real makes a go of it. He goes, Punk loses at the Chamber, uses his Paul Heyman favor to get an audience with Rock and the corporate heads, becomes Corpo Punk, and headlines WrestleMania. And Cash Priestley and Oakley Star says, Punk referenced himself as Satan tonight. I think that could be a clue. Cody refuses Rock's offer. Punk loses the Chamber, takes his offer, makes it a 3-way. Cody, Cena, Punk. So 2 baby faces and a heel. Rock representing Punk. I mean, that'd be huge. I mean, obviously, it'd just blow up a lot of expectations, including a Punk. Obviously, there's a lot more of CM Punk babyface to go. I mean, the crowd is super into him tonight in Cincinnati. Kyle Fassel says, "Oh, please, no 3-ways." Yeah, I mean, that's. I won't say no 3-ways. Just don't do it as a crutch. Do it when it's a bigger match than the singles matches that you should have done a good job building. On occasion, there is a compelling 3-way. But Joe Schmo in the chat says Cena and Cody just seems boring in my opinion. That one-on-one match. Goodfella says save the multi-man matches for the undercard. Okay. Elsewhere in the chat. This Is Not Real says if he had just said corporate champion, I think it would have been much clearer. Rivers Westwood says Cole called Rock's promo bizarre. Is this what they were going for, or is it trying to control the narrative? I also noticed Cole when in the intro when he talked about Rock that I'm not trying to get him in trouble. The tone in his voice came across like Rock has been exasperating for all of us, and it's my job to promote this segment and talk about it. But my God, was that a mess? That is me reading a lot into Cole's tone. But Cole is a professional. Every inflection he has, I think, is meant to be read into. It ought to be deliberate, and he should know people are going to have an emotional reaction to what he did. And his tone was sort of like, and then there was Rock in his promo, his offer on Friday. You can read into it multiple ways, but mine was almost like, did he show his hand a little bit, Chris? That was a mess, and certainly a lot of people thought that. Darrell says Cody and Rollins tried to help Rock's promo from what they did tonight, and Goodfella 1422 says a Rock promo put my brain in a pretzel. I'm not doing it again. I don't blame him. Although Kyle Fassel says the Rock's promo has grown on me since thinking about it. So, Chris, any thoughts on some of those chat room comments?
Yeah, I think there may have been one positive one, and that was from Kyle that listened to our show, so thank you. But clearly, I think the promo one, I think a lot of these promos are too long generally, and the Rock promos are even longer than the longest WWE promos. And yes, anything can be like I think it was Darrell's point. I agree. Actually, the way they talked about it today actually made more sense, and they actually tried to clean it up. But the problem is, you shouldn't have to do that in the first place. You should make it, coherent and clear and very easy for people to follow. And again, if this was the first time this happened, it's okay. But The Rock did a rambling promo on NXT a couple months ago, and he's considered one of the great promos of all time, and is an actual legitimate movie star. But some of his last few efforts in the ring have been meandering at best. You're muted.
I got to do it once a show. Chris, honestly, what do you make of Rock's NXT promo and the meandering nature and the kind of all over the place? Like, I was trying to look at a lot of different ways on Friday to frame Rock's performance, and I'm not saying it was good that he went from like in character heel to out of character corporate head to nostalgia Rock babyface. I mean, he's all over the place. But my sort of either psychoanalysis of what drives him to kind of meander and be all over the place, or the conscious strategy, I'll call it, out of the insecurity that if he tries to be cheered and he's booed, it's embarrassing. If he tries to get booed and he's cheered, it looks like he can't control an audience. But if he does all of it, he can just claim whatever the audience's response is what he was going for. And so there's part of me that thinks that could be a manifestation of insecurity over what happened last year with him, where he came in, thought he'd be welcome. I'm a big star. Cody, pat on the head. We'll get to you later. I'm The Rock. I'm freaking Rock. Come on. I'm going to bring in a whole new fan base. No one's going to think anything of it. Otherwise, he wasn't paying attention to how invested people were in Cody finishing a story at that WrestleMania after the setback the year before. So it's sort of him taking out an insurance policy against looking bad again. It also could just be he's sort of lost it. Like he's stressed out and overwhelmed and catered to and doesn't really have a grip on reality anymore or what the pulse of the fans are, and doesn't follow storylines close enough and is trying to just make it all work. And it ends up being this jumbled mess, like a lot of movie scripts where it's done by committee and rewritten 18 times. Rock as a performer has become a committee who's trying to please everybody all the time. And, we saw that in late October. He's trying to please everybody all the time. Won't take a stand, won't just stand in one spot and be firm about it. And we didn't, it was kind of, to me, this is sort of a manifestation of and obviously a little bit of a caricature because it's in a wrestling context of who we've seen Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson become over the decades. So that's me throwing all that your way. What do you think of that?
I think I heard you with Jason Powell last week on your Tuesday show talk about someone from AEW. I can't remember who it was in AEW. What they need an editor in their promo, and like that's The Rock needs an editor, but he is the editor. So whatever him, Brian Gewirtz, or whatever think that they want to say, and they'll say it for how long they want, because the show's longer. So if I need 20 minutes, I'll take 20 minutes. If I need half an hour, I'll take half an hour. And I think the problem is like since The Rock basically left wrestling full time in 2004 or whenever that was, he's always come back and he's The Rock. He's a big star. People remember him from his days, but he's actually been around so much in the last year or so that you're getting diminished returns. It used to be if The Rock showed up randomly. I was at the WrestleMania in New York, where The Rock just came out randomly and like shot cannons into the air, and everybody was excited. That's all he had to do.
Yeah.
But he's coming back so much, doing these meandering promo left and right, babyface, heel, final boss, but I want to make the big announcement that WrestleMania is coming to New Orleans, and it's really incoherent. It's all over the place, and it's not helping him. And, there's a way to involve him that just doesn't take away from the entire structure of the show, but that would mean someone telling him, actually, no, you cannot do this. Maybe it's a separate thing, but I know we'll talk probably more about the Tozawa Gunther match. And I thought, this match probably went a little bit longer than I thought. But then after Pat McAfee was telestrating Michael Cole's interview with Logan Paul. And I thought, I wish the Tozawa Gunther match went a little bit longer, so we wouldn't have to see that at all. It's kind of like how The Rock has been. It's like, take as much time as you want. It's like almost like maybe they should book more matches. So Rock, you only have 10 minutes. Sorry. Cut it down and make it quick. But he's all over the place, and someone needs to kind of tell him that it's not constructive to the show. But I don't know if there's anybody that will do that.
So I think the idea that Rock is out of practice and overexposed is definitely at play here. I also think there's some scar tissue from last year, and I think scar tissue works both ways. It's who Rock is now in general, a little overexposure, and then also for him scar tissue of being rejected and having to sort of be, I don't say humiliated, but certainly have his sense of that he's such a big star, everyone will part ways for whatever he proposes, and that blew up. Left him trying to make up lost ground. That was it. YouTube video was trying to do it. The Netflix appearance was kind of a weird way to do it. But also fans have scar tissue with him. Like it's not even fully healed. They're like, what's Rock going to do this year to screw up what we've been investing, hours a week in watching develop slowly and deliberately by Paul Levesque and his creative team? And is he going to come in and blow things up again and make things worse? And I think Rock is aware of it, but I think fans are not only aren't they just excited to see Rock bless WWE with his presence, people have watched WWE become a very, very successful and very big, selling out these stadium shows and these arenas. And there's kind of a sense of, we're doing just fine without you, bud. Can you please stay away, go do your movies, and let us do our thing here? You're not wanted. Or if you are here, you better be good, and you better not get in the way and displace other things. And so that all is in play, and that just makes this fascinating, because this is not Rock showing up as a special guest at WrestleMania and people going, oh, maybe Rock can help WWE get to new heights. WWE's at new heights. They're on Netflix without him. They're selling out all these buildings. They're doing stadium shows, 2-night PLEs now. I think WWE fans are sort of like, you're bigger than WWE, Rock, but you can't make WWE bigger than it is. It's as big as it gets. There's all these international PLEs. We've got our guaranteed money coming in from Netflix and USA and the CW and on and on. We have all these reality series on Tubi and A&E. There was a time when people wanted Rock to rescue WWE or elevate it, and now it's like, just stay out of here. You had your fun. Let us now have our fun. You go do your thing. I don't think that's everybody, and I not even 100% agree with that perspective, but I think some fans carry that with them as their perspective when Rock shows up. Obviously, Rock brings new people in. I mean, the SmackDown ratings, we put up our report at PWTorch.com. I think I don't know. I was going to say, I think we had them first, but I didn't check everywhere to see. But we got our ratings report up. We always put perspective on where they were 1 and 2 years ago and 10-week averages, and do the overall viewership number, but also the key demo numbers. They did 1.736 million viewers compared to 1.442 million the prior week and 1.5 million the week before that. So Rock added a few 100,000 people just from 24 hours of social media buzz. So, and that's not peak viewership. That's the average over 2 hours. Obviously, Rock, Cody, when we get the quarters and minute by minute numbers, peaked even higher. Rock can make a difference, but that's ephemeral in a sense. It's fleeting. It's a sugar rush in ratings, Chris. You can have a bunch of people show up, but if they all go away afterwards, they just want to see Rock, but they're not hardcore fans, or they would have been watching anyway if they were without Rock. So Rock peaks a number, but those people don't buy WrestleMania tickets. They don't, watch the show every week. How much does that matter if it displaces the well thought out, deliberately plotted storylines that WWE has, and he disrupts them and screws things up? Is it worth it? But of course, final point, and then over to you. What are they going to do? Rock's the boss. He pointed that out. He's not the top guy in the corporate structure, but he's the most influential, because the top people look at him as the biggest asset that they have to put on TV. Your thoughts?
It's almost like a work, like basketball team, and like when the boss comes, he has to take all the shots. He doesn't come every game, but if he shows up this game, like your job is to pass him the ball, and whether he hits the shots or not, he's going to take as many shots as he wants.
Yep.
And that's kind of The Rock's presence. I think the problem with The Rock has, even for people that are coming in who may not watch the show, who are there for him, they're watching it and they're thinking, well, what is he doing? It's like, oh yeah, I like The Rock. I mean, the thing about The Rock is when he came back years ago, he did, he would make fun of a couple of wrestlers, hit a rock bottom at a people's elbow, and he would be a throwback to what people remembered from late 90s, 2000s, and people really enjoyed that when he came back a couple times a year, whenever it was. Even if I'm like, oh, I like The Rock, I'm going to watch him on Friday, he went on for 20 minutes, and I have no idea what he said. I'm probably not going to watch the next time The Rock's on it because it's just like, well, I'll find a clip on YouTube or someone else will tell me. So I think whatever he delivers with people showing up at a specific time, his performance is hurt because he's just so all over the place.
A couple other chat comments here. MD87 Punk says in response to you and I have been saying, Chris, it's only been a couple appearances that Rock has struggled. He was dope in the WrestleMania build last year. Kirk Johnson says, disagree with Wade. Us casuals only came back because of Rock. The WrestleMania build was lacking before he came back. We had two. I mean, who knows if Rock's adding or taking away, because the WrestleMania build, there's a big chapter with Elimination Chamber, and then there's almost 2 months after that. So to sit here and go, well, Rock's helping the build, they can't peak early. They got to pace themselves. So people who are judging the WrestleMania build not working for them. And again, you can look at all the possibilities, all the rumored possibilities, and go, that doesn't do anything for me. But I don't think it's fair to take the actual thing Rock did and say that's for sure better than what Paul Levesque had been planning for months and months and months and months. That was about to happen starting after Elimination Chamber. So just in fairness to fairness, you can't judge something that didn't have a chance to rev up. But if you looked at the options and said nothing excites me, and you don't think there's any way WWE could do it, I mean, fair enough, but that feels a little premature. Derek Mitchell says in the chat, Wade, I think you personally encapsulate The Rock's wrestling persona and his overinflated Hollywood ego that you've heard about him within recent years. I don't allow myself to get worked up about him. And yeah, I mean, Chris, how much of Rich fan on everything with Rich and Wade this weekend, talked a lot about Rock's movies situation, his career, a bit of a rebound after last year. He's maybe feeling he's got a little more momentum, a little more sure-footed. How much of Rock's Hollywood reputation do you think affects how wrestling fans look at him? I don't pay as much attention to Rock's Hollywood situation as probably the average wrestling fan does, to be honest. But I think a lot of people follow the ups and downs of the so-called tabloid coverage and social media outrages about him, or controversies about what happens on the set, or how much business a movie does and how the studio's reacting to him and all of that. Do you think that affects how fans are reacting to Rock on WWE in the context of Raw and SmackDown and WrestleMania?
I think some fans do. I mean, obviously, my good friend Rich Fan is way more into movies than I am, and hasn't been as long as I've known him, 25 years, same as Justin. But I think it does, because I do feel people feel like he's coming in kind of based on more. I think the issue was more, and I think it's WWE's fault in some ways, when he had that storyline with John Cena, I guess more than 10 years ago, when it was like, which is ironic now with John Cena, where his life is about, John Cena was the real WWE wrestler doing everything, and The Rock was a Hollywood person not coming in. And I think because that was a storyline, because they talked about it, it really kind of built that presence, or built that focal point of him, of how people thought about him, that he was just kind of focused on Hollywood, which again, he should be focused on Hollywood. He's doing successful there. But I think also ultimately, if he wasn't doing poor performances, because again, he came back and did a lot less that didn't seem to disrupt anything, and people seem to love it. So I think part of it is everything else is background. To the previous point you mentioned, we got to talk about the two scenarios that we have. Either Cody Rhodes accepts The Rock's offer and he becomes the corporate heel champion for whoever wins the Elimination Chamber, or Cody doesn't accept his offer, and then the question is, who are you more interested in watching Cody wrestle, The Rock or whoever wins the Elimination Chamber? So neither of those options really seem to help the WrestleMania build. And so that's where I think where The Rock what he's done kind of is nonsensical, because it doesn't, you spent all this time on the Elimination Chamber. There were qualifying matches, it led to things with, the Bloodline, Solo and Jacob Fatu fighting, and, Jimmy Uso and all those different random people, like their storylines were all kind of intertwined into the Elimination Chamber qualification. And then it's like, well, Rock's here, guys. So glad we spent the last, 4 weeks having all these matches, having all these things. Yeah. Rock's here. That's more important. And I think that's the problem that fans have, is that, excuse me, he seems to Bigfoot.
Yes.
What's been going on.
And you can tell, well, I sense that if WWE was truly, truly, truly excited and honored from Paul Levesque on down, that it would radiate through the show. That wrestlers would be voluntarily, talking about how exciting it is to have Rock back in ways that fit the storyline and his character. And I just don't sense it, and it does reflect my reporting and the reporting of others about how, I don't say unwelcome he is, but sort of how unwelcome he is in certain circles about disrupting all these storylines that you just talked about, Chris, that I don't think people think it's likely to happen to anyone other than when Rock shows up, that it kind of disrupts the pace and cadence and logic of everything else going on. But I don't know. This is not real. Says, I imagine the casuals and newer fans being confused, not understanding where The Rock is coming from as a character and a person. Cody addressed, like, what does it mean to sell a soul? And he's like, I think I know what it means. Do you think Cody, because some people are like, what does that even mean? A lot of people equated that to being a corporate champion. Cody's like, stop. I think what Cody did to define it, and to his credit, was to sell my soul means lighten up my schedule, take some, it's kind of some of the stuff Seth laid out, but, basically become a big shot and work less hard, have an easier life as champion, but give Rock some of the credit. Rock helped give you the clout you needed to stop signing all the autographs, to stop making all the appearances, to stop. And it's sort of counter to Rock's corporate role, which would be he wants Cody to do all this stuff, but you can peel away the layers and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So your thoughts on that aspect of the soul, and then we'll move to our callers next, and I'm sure we'll talk about things besides Rock at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense what you said, but I think that's part of the problem is it's all conjecture. It's like,
yeah,
why do you want his soul? It's like the other part about, oh yes, I can make you more money. You don't have to work as hard. You just be with me and I can give you these opportunities. All right, that alone makes enough sense. And the thing was like, well, I want your title. Oh no, I don't want the title. I want your soul. And it's like, again, I think all the stuff that The Rock is doing, whether you're a casual, whether you're a diehard fan, it doesn't make a difference. None of it makes sense. And I just think, yeah, they need to do something different, something better. It's all over the place.
Yeah. As far as Rock being in a bubble, Goodfella 1422 says, I don't know if I blame Rock for his bubble. I blame his team more for not getting him up to speed. I don't know. You're letting the guy off the hook a little bit. I mean, there's probably some blame to go around, but when you are the guy with the yes people around you, got to work really hard to make sure you're, that you're watching the product. And, Kyle Fassel says the SmackDown press conference was comical as well. It proves how much of a bubble The Rock is in. El Archer, though, says, I honestly think they did need The Rock to shake things up this year. His presence was not needed last year, but this year's Mania isn't where it needs to be yet. It does not feel like Mania. So there we are. All right, let's bring Rivers into the conversation. Our first caller here. Rivers, welcome. Good to hear from you again. What are your thoughts on Raw tonight? You can stay on the Cody Rock WrestleMania topic, or certainly other things happen as well, which we'll be getting into soon here.
I do have thoughts on Rock. Actually, just a couple, but I think there's a false choice being given that either Rock has to come in and blow things up, or you don't get The Rock and you don't get the people he brings in. When actually, in an ideal situation, you get both. You get The Rock coming in, doing something productive. So, I mean, that's the ideal situation. It isn't just we let Rock do whatever he wants, or we don't have him. Now, in the real world, I think that probably is the only two options. But as a viewer, you want to be able to be like, well, there is a third option that would be better to go with.
It's a good point to bring up. Yeah, we don't want to get caught in a trap. A lot of us do, which is that false choice between two extremes or two options that are not the only two.
Right. First of all, CJ had to leave the chat because he's got a interview for promotion tomorrow. Just want to say good luck when he listens back. A lot of my phone-ins have been negative and off topic, so I want to keep this positive and on topic. First of all, like the show. I think it was a great example of a great show that didn't have any huge storylines, returns, or anything major happening. A lot of the stars didn't even wrestle, but I thought it was a thoroughly enjoyable show, start to finish. I think it's a good example of what WWE can do in between the big peaks of The Rock and everyone coming back.
What do you think of the show, Chris? Overall?
I enjoyed the show. I thought it was very good to have the women's title match in that segment. I thought it was great for me as someone who watches a lot of different wrestling. Even though my daughter was asleep, she kept running, and I was watching it to hear. And I hate that This Is Awesome chant. Personally, I'm not a fan of it, but I do know there's been this history of wrestling where people have not paid attention to the women's wrestling. The fact that there are two matches that had This Is Awesome chance for me shows the crowd was into it, which is cool here in Ohio, where I am. I thought I really enjoyed the show. I thought it moved things along. Obviously, there's a big pay-per-view coming up on Saturday, PLE, sorry. And so this show needs to be a setup for that, and I think it did a really good job. But also, I think the good thing that Raw is doing, whether it be the War Raiders versus the Creed brothers or the women's title matches, that they're setting up matches for next week so that there's a reason for you to tune in next week and not just we're going to talk all about the PLE and there's no reason for you to turn into Raw.
All right, Rivers.
Yeah, I also liked Paul's promo at the beginning. In the nicest way, it strikes me as someone who hasn't been taught how to do a promo, but someone who has watched a lot of wrestling promos, because even the best ones I feel can fall into a rhythm of what a wrestling promo is and not how that person would speak in front of people. And I think Paul just had a looseness to him that kind of I found endearing. And it was like, that is someone who likes wrestling, who just got a microphone in front of a bunch of people. I think it's partly down to the fact that he, as a real person, is kind of a character. So he's kind of been cutting promos in other contexts, for ages and ages. So he's a weird hybrid, but I thought his work was really light and enjoyable. I liked his promo at the beginning.
Yeah, it was fun seeing Punk and Logan Paul go back and forth, and we had a slap, Punk bleeding a little bit, trying not to sell it too much, but also showing off the blood. They didn't let Logan overstay his time on the microphone. I think the interruption was well timed, and I think Punk stood his ground well. I think that is a match they could do they'll do it at some point, I hope. But WrestleMania is it's out there as in the realm of possibility. Certainly there'll be some interaction in the chamber. Chris, what you think of what we saw with Punk and Logan and their back and forth at the top of the show?
Yeah, I think I like the fact that Logan Paul is a jerk. He doesn't pretend he's not a jerk. He's not there to get cheered by the fans. I mean, it seems that is natural for him, so that's why it comes across so well. But I feel like in the era of wrestling where the cool heel has been too much of a staple, I like the fact that someone that comes out and is trying to be antagonistic, trying to annoy people, and CM Punk kind of comes out as man of the people, wearing his Union shirt to dispel that. And also, I think the one thing that WWE is doing really well with both the Rumble and Elimination Chamber, as I said earlier, is to plant different seeds of why people might interact. It's like they're not just in this match, and yes, they want to win the match to go to WrestleMania, but they also have issues with people in the match itself, and that leads to some interesting possibilities.
I think he has great instincts as well. Like if you watch his face throughout the entire thing, he was reacting rather than waiting for, okay, then Punk says this and then I say this. Really good work from him. If I had to criticize the show, and it's very nitpicky, the runner they have at the bottom that gives updates of what matches have happened beforehand?
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. However, one of them said the New Day defeats LWO with post-match beatdown or something like that. And like that should be something that's on like the torch. It should have been like they beat LWO and the GM is investigating after-match assault. Something like that. Because like a beatdown just seems too inside baseball, and like as a wrestling fan, you know what that is, but if it was a real sport, they wouldn't just casually say, yeah, and someone was assaulted afterwards.
Yeah, that's a little too flippant.
Yeah, right.
To just kind of report it as that. Did they use the post-match term, the jargon?
I can't remember. They referenced it being after the match. It might have just been after-match beatdown.
Yeah.
It just seemed very, I know what that is, but does anyone else know what that is who isn't a wrestling fan?
Yeah.
Just on that as well, I'll say, a lot of people are talking about the Cody Rock thing becoming a corporate champion. Now, we all know what that means because we watched wrestling in the 90s. However, if you are new to it, do you have any clue of what a corporate champion means? Because one, a corporate champion is Cody Rhodes. Like he now is the most corporate champion.
Yeah.
And also it worked because you had the corporation, this evil faction, and you had Austin on the other side.
Yeah, heel Vince McMahon instead of babyface Paul Levesque.
Right. Yeah. So like with Austin, it worked because he was the rebel. So obviously his opposite was a corporate champion. But now in 2025, what does that even mean? They're all corporate champions, and that's fine. But yeah, so I think a lot of people were using that term, and it just made me think, I know what that term means. I can picture it. Would someone who's only watched wrestling for the last 15 years know what the term corporate champion even entails?
Chris, is there enough of a stigma on just the word corporation, that it inherently is heel? Or is there a point here from Rivers, which is, Cody puts a positive face on a corporation because, I mean, he's seen as a company man. He's seen as a guy who represents the company very well, and they're proud of it, the way that WWE marketed John Cena. So yeah, is there a difference between company man and corporate champion? Is that enough? Do enough fans know history or can get from the context of it? It's not a big deal. Or is that something WWE should maybe think twice about and be more specific or elaborate more on why that's a negative?
I think WWE has to focus on, that's a great point by Rivers, by the way. I want to say that from the beginning, but I think they need to focus on the fact that The Rock is trying to help him, assist him in a way. He's going to get him these different opportunities. He's going to make him work less. He's going to do all these things for him that, without necessarily the word corporate, makes people think that Cody's kind of either selling out or taking shortcuts. I think when you're playing back, WWE is a corporation now, or part of a corporation, of publicly traded. So they're all corporate. They had a commercial in the middle with them all opening up baseball cards and figuring out, who's on it. So
yeah.
I don't think the use of the word could be very confusing when, also how many commercials had WWE wrestlers in them during the show. I think they need to focus on The Rock. If Cody goes with him, The Rock is going to get him advantages. Maybe he's going to cheat for him. Maybe he's going to make him not have to defend his title, whatever, and focus on that aspect as opposed to this other part that gets kind of murky.
Does the fact that we saw a little while back a promo about Cody maybe being worn out and showing signs of that, is that good? Is that something that Rock with this angle drew from, or does it indicate maybe there was more planning than people are letting on? Because it did lay the ground. You're like, why is that a thing we're talking about, that maybe Cody is burned out and worn out? It was a primer for Rock tempting Cody, and Cody, it being believable as fans think about the way Cody's been framed, that maybe this is possible. I thought they went right against that when Cody started doing his stage dives, and they were showing him having a great time just 5 days after the promo, laid out there that maybe it's wearing on him and he's running out of energy, and this is it's very difficult doing what Cody has done for a long time, and he's going to run out of energy. So I just throw that out there. I mean, it's something that, at least if it's a happy accident, it adds some credibility to the notion that maybe Cody would consider Rock's offer as ill-defined as it is. Any quick thoughts on that, Chris? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a little playback. The CM Punk, when he had his face-to-face promo with Cody, did mention, I know how you're feeling. I was WWE champion for a year, the burden, how hard it gets, and this may be a play into that as well. So yeah, I think yeah, there's a definite part of the overwhelming. It's hard to be WWE champion. Maybe there's a shortcut you can take instead.
Yeah. All right, Rivers, back to you. Yeah.
Cody couldn't even come back the week after in like a suit because he already wears the most corporate kind of gimmick thing. So I think that is what they would go for. I don't think it makes sense because Cody is winning matches. If he was on like a losing streak and needed someone to help him hold on to the title, that's one thing. But he's winning matches. And if it's the case of, well, he's doing all this other charity work and all this stuff, you have Gunther, who a couple of months before said, yeah, I don't do all that because I'm just here to wrestle and keep my title. So yeah, it's just, and I will say, I don't think WWE have used the word corporate champion. I think that's wrestling fans have assumed it's corporate champion and then have an individual image in their own mind about what that would be. But I don't think it's defined in any way. Yeah, that's it. Cool. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks, Rivers. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. Let's bring David Miller onto the show. David, good to see you. Good to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Raw tonight?
Wow, where do I start? Huge improvement from last week's show, which was kind of a snooze fest. Solid action from beginning to end. I think they made really good use of Tozawa in the segment with Gunther. It gave Gunther a chance to show off his a real mean streak. And Tozawa made him look like $1 million. Every chop that Tozawa took, it was like it killed him. And the fans were into it when Tozawa got the offense. The fans were really into the match. It was really, so much more than just a squash match. And then, with Gunther, going in there after the match and attacking, attacking, the rest of the having a moment here, but Otis attacking Otis, and then with Jay coming out, it was just a great segment. Showed off Gunther's mean streak and really built him up, I think, and I think they also went a long way towards rebuilding the strength of the women's intercontinental title with the match tonight, because I think they've really gotten off to a bad start with the secondary women's titles by having Lyra lose to Bayley, and then earlier I think Chelsea Green lost to, I believe it was Naomi. Not off to a good start there, but I think they had a good solid match with Dakota Kai, and then with with the interference there at the end of the match with Ivy Nile, I think they're building that up really well. The women's tag match was off the charts good. It was just way, way good. I was literally on the edge of my seat with some of those near falls. I did not know where they were going with it. And I think perhaps with Liv and Raquel winning the tag titles, that may free up Bianca to win the Elimination Chamber and possibly going to face Rhea Ripley. And there's still stuff going on with the Jade. I don't believe Liv and Raquel had anything to do with it. I think that's going to come out to be something involving either Bianca or Naomi or both of them. But I could see Bianca taking a heel run towards Rhea Ripley in that women's title match. So as far as the men's Elimination Chamber, I'm at this point I'm kind of leaning towards Punk. I don't really see. I could possibly see Cody giving The Rock a no at the Elimination Chamber, and perhaps The Rock not accepting a no, and say, hey, see you at WrestleMania, and muddying the waters in a match between Punk and Cody in some way, shape, or form, whether that be Cody taking a heel turn towards the end of the match and becoming this corporate champion, there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of different ways they could go with that.
So let's backtrack to the just the quality of the wrestling tonight, and the ramifications of the quality wrestling, and starting with the women's tag team title change. As David brings up, it frees up Bianca and Naomi to not have the tag team titles. They got something out of their run as tag champs. It could factor in storyline wise what losing them does to their chemistry, but it might not be storyline. It might just be what David's saying. It's more, they needed that in order to free them up to be in the singles match at WrestleMania and move Liv and Raquel into a feud with a different team for the tag team titles. Liv did deny tonight their involvement. Didn't act like she'd be ashamed to have done it, but she just matter-of-factly said she didn't do it. It's good that she's overtly said that. It would be weird not to. There's no benefit to not denying it, whether they did it or didn't do it. You'd think they would deny it. So by not denying it, almost feels like they're just playing a game that is part of the storytelling aspect of it rather than feeling realistic. So, Chris, what do you think about, one, the match quality, but then also the ramifications, the result, what this indicates is coming in for all the women involved here. They did give us more of a focus on the Jade situation with a video package on her. We saw her splayed almost comically in position on the windshield. Again, reminded of that. You think the storyline is going to come to a head, if not Saturday, sometime relatively soon.
I thought the match was excellent, as David said. I had a feeling that Raquel and Liv would win, but even during the match, the way that they laid it out, I wasn't quite sure. So that was a good kudos to them. I think that the reason why this happened is because it does give them more opportunities for things, storylines for the Chamber. My guess is either Jade comes out, or perhaps there's some kind of miscommunication that leads to one of them being eliminated, or Naomi maybe questions where Bianca was when she got pinned. So I think because they have a couple options, and as David said, the even possibility of Bianca winning and wrestling Rhea Ripley for the title. So I think there are more storyline options that you could do with Naomi and Bianca. So because of that, they needed to lose the tag team titles here tonight to let those storyline options flourish.
David, back to you.
Yeah, I agree with what Chris said, as far as, their direction that they're taking with with Liv and Raquel winning the tag titles. No, and again, we talked about this last week. I don't think anyone really needs to see a repeat of Liv versus Rhea. We've been there, done that. And I really like I said, they crammed so much into the show. Carlito, by the way, I just gotta say, Carlito is gold. I love him and what he does. He always brings that spark of genuine comedy into the mix there. But who do you think Dominic might be talking about when he's talking about adding another member? I've been kind of rolling that around in my head, and I can't really think of anything. But do you guys have any idea?
I think the main person being speculated would be Aleister Black, free from his AW deal. I don't know how that would work. Chris, what do you think of that? And is your list longer? Do you have other names, other suspects?
No, I think that's a good person. I'm not sure how he fits because he's sort of a spooky character, and Judgment Day was spooky. They're not as spooky as they were before, but it would be a good way to introduce him, as Judgment Day seems to be on the brink of breaking up every minute anyway. So he would be a good person to introduce.
Yeah. David, anything else you want to add?
One more thing. I noticed during the Intercontinental title match, the referee, Jessica Carr, and I've heard rumors about her wrestling under a mask for Evolve and possibly transitioning back into in-ring action. Now, with her referee duties, do you see? Because one thing you notice that you never see anymore, especially with women referees, you don't see ref bumps, not with the women. Could you possibly see something like that with Jessica, and leading into some type of, introducing her onto the main roster.
What do you think, Chris?
Possibly. I'm not. I saw that same story today. I'm not really familiar with her wrestling career. I can't think of any women wrestler that WWE's had with a mask. So maybe that's just what she's doing to train.
Spider Lady.
Oh yeah, well yeah. That was a different situation. I think that was only a one-time thing, right? I guess the different Spider Ladies with who it was at that time. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting.
Let's make people look it up.
Mid 80s, folks. But I think that there's a possibility for that. I mean, I'm someone who, again, I cover independent wrestling, and sometimes I do shows where there are 8 matches and 6 ref bumps. So I'm very happy not to see a lot of ref bumps, and it means that WWE is not going to do that. Only, in the main event matches on pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty content with that.
Very good. Thanks, David.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, good talking again. Appreciate your perspective and the topics he brought up. Some chat room comments. Derek Mitchell just said, Bianca did give a dirty look after losing the belts on the outside, so we can maybe read into that. Kyle Fassel wants to know how come in wrestling people don't talk to people after they've been injured? You're telling me these women haven't talked to Jade, like asking if she saw who attacked her. Then we had a comical exchange in the chat about how she's at a facility where there's no cell service or Wi-Fi. My assumption, but I do think WWE should cover this, is Bianca and Naomi at some point should have lamented, but maybe in a way that draws suspicion upon them, that it's unfortunate that Jade was attacked from behind and never saw who attacked her. Now, they might want to leave that open, but it's a bad opening to leave, because if Jade does know who attacked her, unless they do an amnesia angle or she's been in a coma all this time, you can't possibly say. I mean, there is postal service even where there isn't Wi-Fi, at least for now. So, I mean, obviously Jade would have, if she knew who attacked her, she could have revealed it. Now, it's possible Jade knows it's Bianca and Naomi, or one of them, or whomever else chose to keep it to herself because she wanted to be the one to get revenge. She didn't want them to be suspended or fired or arrested. So, I mean, there's a lot. I will just say this to the idea of, well, it's unrealistic. If WWE is attentive to the details, they can make it realistic. Chris, do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think they need to be, since Jade hasn't appeared on the show, you have a storyline reason for why it hasn't come up. But yeah, at some point, it's going to be clear. I think a lot of it is who attacks her. If it's when she was attacked, when she was found, Bianca was in the ring. So she has plausible deniability. I think the assumption that it was Naomi. But yeah, I think they do need to explain why she hasn't said anything, why they haven't talked to her. I think the attack was in October or November, so there would have been. You think there would have been some communication for your friend that you're willing to jump people who are accused of attacking? You may want to maybe would have talked to her and asked her and found out what she knows.
Back to Punk and Logan, chat room question from Ryzilla. Any chance Punk and Logan end up in a faux boxing match, a la Roddy Piper and Mr. T? And do you see that attracting any tangible audience growth of Logan fan Pauls not already watching WWE? So, Paul Brothers known for their, whatever exhibition style boxing fights, whatever they're doing. I think fans would be upset they don't get to see Punk in a true main event at WrestleMania. They may or may not get it, or getting a world title shot, but being part of a gimmicky match like Mr. T Piper. I mean, Punk and Logan said, the reason you don't like me, Punk, I speculate, I've concluded that it's because I win at everything I try and you lose at everything you try. So that's a reference to Punk failing at MMA, or framing what he did in MMA as a failure. I mean, it depends on his goals and all that. I mean, it was whatever. That's a whole other discussion, but it does set the stage for that. It doesn't have to be at WrestleMania. I mean, I think WWE's planting a lot of seeds for things that won't happen at WrestleMania. 1, to hedge in case Rock shows up and disrupts things. Or 2, because they just want to they don't want people to know what the lineup's going to be until they announce it. And then if they invest in an idea of Punk and Logan fighting, that doesn't have to happen at WrestleMania, but that could be part of a longer term series, Chris, I guess. What do you think of that?
I mean, people have to. I mean, I'm thinking Floyd Mayweather versus Big Show was the last boxing match. I'm thinking that was like 2009. I mean, that's 15 plus years ago.
Wow.
That is the boxing in a wrestling match. That was a big gimmick, at a different era of wrestling. There already is a Paul that boxes. If people want to see that, I just don't see there'd be much interest seeing that in a WWE ring, let alone at WrestleMania.
Yeah. JC Scooby says, no more boxing, please. If people want to see Punk in good wrestling matches, that would not be one of them. And if it looks fake, it's going to be annoying. And if it's too real, somebody could get concussed or hurt. I don't know. So, yeah. All right, let's go to the mailbag. JB from Detroit says, I think that they're teasing Punk versus Logan Paul a little too hard. I don't see it being the Mania match, but I could see it happening down the line. I'm curious what the plans for Punk and Paul are individually at Mania. I don't really see Paul versus AJ Styles as likely either. There's been some shade thrown by Logan at AJ, I guess. I think on social media. So what, in as much as it's a priority and you care, Chris, what do you think about Logan Paul's options for WrestleMania?
There was I saw it online. I don't know if it actually appeared on Raw of Logan Paul kind of talking down to AJ Styles. So for me, it was weird. I thought AJ Styles was going to wrestle Braun Breaker, but there was like no interaction between the other day. I think with Logan Paul, I think a lot of fans would be upset because they want CM Punk in a more high-profile match than Logan Paul, but if that's not the case, I think this actually would be a pretty good place for him, just because it will get a lot of notoriety and it will get a lot of attention. So I think that wouldn't be a bad spot for him.
Number 2 from JB, who would be big enough to a big enough tag team to oppose the new evil New Day at Mania? Could it possibly involve Big E managing the babyface team in some way? Not a lot of developments there, but comment on what we saw from New Day tonight. Michael Cole going, I gave them the benefit of the doubt to the last couple of weeks. They got a solid heelish win tonight. Your thoughts on tonight and what's in store for them at Mania, and should they be a priority with all the with their legacy, their history, and all the attention paid to the story that led to their heel turn?
First of all, I don't know why Chad Gable has gone around the world to find ways to beat luchadors, because the New Day seems to not have a problem and they didn't have to go on a sabbatical to do it. I think it's really cool for them to be a heel team. I think actually Mania would be a good place for them to have a comeuppance, but this is part of the issue. Is it maybe a returning Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee? Maybe that would be a good match for them to give Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee a win. I think that came without the top of my head. I think that would be a good option. Yeah,
I like that. All right, Gunther and Tozawa is one of the better squash matches I've seen in a long time. Tozawa is a bump machine, and no one plays a more brutal wrestler right now than Gunther. I wouldn't mind having one of these a week if the situation calls for it. So one of the things that we were wondering is how will they fill 8 weeks with Gunther and Jay? It seemed like it peaked last week, and let's just get to the match. Having Jay come to the defense of sympathetic characters like sympathetic, hopefully in most eyes, WWE hopes, in Akira Tozawa and Otis is one way to do it. What did you think of, and now Jay getting into it a little bit with Grayson Waller? That could be a one-off, or could have been more to serve a purpose of a Theory Waller breakup that maybe is laying the groundwork for, but they tease breakups and then retract those regularly too, with teams and heel turns and stuff. So who knows? But yeah, what do you think of what we saw with Gunther tonight with the squash? Because Gunther was dominating Tozawa at the beginning, and Tozawa made some believable comebacks. And I wrote this in my Raw report at PWTorch.com in the analysis paragraph, that I think what they accomplished in that, one, is just giving fans a chance to see how dominant Gunther can be, but also give fans a little taste of what it'll be to show Gunther selling to an underdog. And Jay is framing himself as an underdog, as he should. And that, he talked in his promo, everyone's underestimating me, writing me off, but I'm going to put up a fight. I'm going to win that title. This is a Sami Zayn against Roman Reigns, Cody against the world and the bloodline. It's a tried and true story. And tonight was a TV low-end teaser of it with Tozawa. We might get it with Otis also. So I thought it was smart booking. I'm a fan of, I wouldn't call that a squash match per se, because it was not a enhancement guy, but it's about as close as you get with WWE these days, with a foregone conclusion and dominance with just a couple hope spots from Tozawa. But they did give him enough, and the crowd was into it. I think they knew better, but they were still into it.
Yeah, I think part of it is just, having a squash match to have a squash match is one thing, but because they're so rare now, televised wrestling, if you're going to have a match like this, you need to have whoever is being squashed have some likability with the crowd. So people like Tozawa, being part of the group there. What are they called? The Alpha? Are they still called Alpha Academy, or did they change their name?
No. What were their t-shirts? Their t-shirts were something tonight.
Alpha Babes, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So that's part of it too. Is like you're squashing someone who at least the crowd cares about on some level, and will support some of his offense. Two, which Gunther did a really good job. There's actually a connection between, in Gunther's mind anyway, a connection between Tozawa and Jey Uso. He's not just some undercard wrestler he's beating up. In Gunther's mind, he's a wrestler that jokes around too much, like Jey Uso jokes around too much.
And they had that at the beginning of the show where Gunther just shook his head and was disgusted by them doing the TikTok dance at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. And so this is how he treats wrestlers. In his mind, Tozawa is Jey Uso. Wrestlers who are not serious, so this is how they get treated, as well as it gives Jey Uso an opportunity to show that he's a pure babyface by coming out and helping. I'm glad he didn't come out, and do his long entrance from the crowd, as Otis was getting choked out. That he came out through the entranceway. So yeah, I think for that standpoint, it did all those things in a pretty good way.
The crowd, Gunther's like, I gifted Adam Pearce and you fans a match of mine, and then he announced Tozawa. Very good heel thing to do. Like, I'm going to have a match, but it's against the guy with like the worst winning record, who's way undersized. And so I mean, it the way that they did it was very heel. It helped put heat on Gunther for like, oh yeah, tough guy. But hopefully Tozawa at least rough you up a little. Kyle Fassel says, I enjoyed the Gunther match. It made sense. And Goodfella1422 says, Gunther forever. All right, back to JB from Detroit. Any chance that we get Seth and Cody at Mania? Could Seth win the Chamber? That's what Levesque's doing with his booking now. There's all these possibilities being put out there to add interest in the Chamber, and the Jey Uso win at the Rumble causes you to not be overconfident that you can rule a bunch of things out. What do you think?
My assumption was after what happened in the Rumble and this person not being involved in the Elimination Chamber matches that Roman Reigns was going to cost Seth Rollins at the Elimination Chamber, and that they would be a WrestleMania match.
Yeah, my answer, I don't think Seth and Cody's in the cards. I think there's too many.
Yeah.
There's too many. I'm just adding to the email question. I think there's too much. There are too many other possibilities for both of them to have a one-on-one match. But I think we have to recalibrate a little bit with Rock and just, imagine maybe this does throw things down. Kyle Fassel says, I've been kind of down on Seth for a while. I don't get his character. I get his character more now because of tonight's promo than I have in a while. That he kind of hates himself because of all the things he's done in the past, and he regrets them. Cody, don't go down that road. He's taking on the role, even though he and Cody aren't that different in age. I think he's a little younger, but been around WWE nonstop. And he's sort of saying, I have enough experience and have made a bunch of mistakes where now I'm going to give good advice to other people. And he is finally sort of aging at age 38 into being somebody who the majority of the active roster is younger than him, including the top acts are now. There's a tipping point that he's reaching where he's not the young guy in the Shield who the future might be built around if he can just figure out his character. He's the guy whose journey's kind of been written, and the majority of it, at least, or close to it. I mean, it just depends. I mean, maybe he has 12 more years being active till age 50, and maybe he goes longer like Jericho. But There's something about him tonight that felt like he was getting into a certain group. There's still the issue of, sort of the bombastic Elton John, whatever, over the top dress that the stuff that he's doing, where it's just this outlandish, over the top character that still doesn't feel like it's a natural branching off or slice of who he really is. And I think that's when people say they don't get his character, what they're going for. But he was a guy in search of a character forever, and after the Shield, and this is what we have. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, I always thought if he offered Cody one of his suits for Cody to turn down The Rock, Cody would have accepted The Rock's offer. I think I would have. But yeah, I think some of the chats are coming up. I mean, yeah, I think the problem is the outfits. I think there is a good storyline progression of someone who's maybe seen what they did in the past and is trying to be a better person, trying to do different things, but he comes out in these goofy outfits, and you just, part of me, I take him very seriously, but there's a small part of me that goes, I just can't take you seriously when you come out with that.
Yep. I mean, it's fair. Darrell Freeman says, if they keep telling the story of Seth hating himself, can they really make his character it can make his character a full thing now and help you understand why he leaned on the laugh and the song and the clothes, because it's his way to cope. And that did cross my mind. If they're looking for, some sort of way to come up with an explanation, maybe not an origin story that wasn't thought of yet when it was created, they could say, yeah, this was actually sort of a coping mechanism because he hated himself for the things that he did. So he created this kind of alternate persona. David Bowie did it as a rock star because all kinds of reasons, but like he had these alternate personalities that he created during his rock career. And so it's not, for people who are in the public eye and perform, having alter egos, so to speak, is something people play around with. And so you could go down that road. Yeah. All right. Anything else on that, Chris?
No.
Yeah. All right. Back to JB's email. Liv and Raquel winning the tag title without any development regarding Jade is interesting. I was thinking that Jade would have come out to distract them or confront them, even though they're likely the red herrings. The weak finish to a great match was the only downer. If they don't overdo it, is it a weak finish to have, Dom and Carlito, and Finn Balor, people interfere on behalf of people in their faction? Is it always by definition a weak finish if it's well executed? Obviously we see at times referees distracted in a way that's unrealistic for way too long. But I'm saying a well executed version of a distraction or interference finish. I mean, is that always wrong? Again, stipulating to the idea that if you overdo something or execute something poorly, by definition, there's a problem. But if it's not overdone and it's well executed, is that fine within the way WWE tells their stories?
I think so. I do want to say the referee, I mean, he was staring at Dom when he put Liv Morgan's foot on the rope. And I just thought all the effort he put to not let him in the ring, you could have very easily disqualified him on that. But yeah, I think part of it is, I go back to when I was I think sometimes I go back to when I was a kid and I would watch wrestling and I would watch the babyface babyface lose because the heel cheated. And I would think, Dusty Rhodes was better or Kerry Von Erich was better, but, whoever, Tully Blanchard helped out or J.J. Dillon or whatever it was. And I think that's part of it is you need this feeling of like the heels, they're bad people. They'll do whatever it takes to win. And yeah, they're going to take shortcuts so that you're annoyed that they kind of usurp the baby faces because they have a numeric advantage. The only thing for me that I feel undercuts that is after the match when they win, there's pyro and they're climbing the rope to celebrate. I just don't think if you want to reiterate them as heels, they shouldn't have this big celebration after winning the titles.
Yeah, a lot of times I wish the announcers showed. And I think it's something Joe Tessitore has a natural instinct for, and Michael Cole is a little spotty on it, which is your reaction to a finish should reflect at the core, if you're the straight announcer, not a heel color commentator, of course, disgust or dismay or disappointment with, copyright Paul Heyman, with the notion that titles should change hands because one team proved to be better or one wrestler proved to be better, not because somebody got away with cheating. And I don't think that's reflected enough in commentary and pro wrestling in general. There are exceptions, but I think Cole when Pyro's going off and the heels are celebrating, Cole should go, they should not be proud of their victory. a decision's a decision. But this is not the beginning of. This is not. They cannot go celebrate tonight and feel true pride in how they went about winning. I mean, there's many ways you can frame that, but that should always be inserted into post-match celebrations after heels win, especially when they win a title. And JB closes with, why does it feel like 90% of Liv's offense is always during the ad breaks? Yeah, I don't know. JC Scoopy says, Liv is the top women's heel. What do you think of Liv's sort of finally, after so many tries, stop, some kind of cringy chapters to a career? Where do you think she is now?
I think she's in a good place. I think being in the Judgment Day, the feud she had with Rhea, having Raquel as kind of her backup has allowed her to develop a character and put it in a really good light. And I think that probably in her career, this is like the best character that she's done, and I think she's doing a good job with it.
All right, Penta tonight. Any thoughts on the continued presentation and progress with him? I thought he did a little less posturing to the crowd, although he did play to the crowd long enough to let Pete Dunne recover enough to thwart his offense, and I think that should be written out of. He should be steered away from that. Only celebrate when you're gonna actually not have it backfire. But obviously, a big part of his character is the emoting beyond the mask, and the mask augmenting that in a positive way. And the Pete Dunne and Ludwig Kaiser feud gives him something to do. It's very mid-card, though. People who thought, Penta's going to be, with all this hype, he's going to end up being a main eventer. I mean, you do not introduce people 2-3 months before WrestleMania if you expect them to be a main eventer right away, because they don't do that. They don't just introduce somebody new and suddenly they take a main event spot. So I think they are feeling him out and trying to figure out if he's somebody they can move higher than this. What do you think about where he stands now?
I think he did a good job. I mean, I think the part of the match was it was a 3-way. He wasn't going to win, but he was going to be able to stand out with his offense. I think it's sort of like almost an existential wrestling question. It's like not everybody can be a main eventer, because there are only so many main events. There are definitely good roles for someone like him, and I think he's been showcased pretty well in his time there. There may be a time that he's in a main event based on the circumstances, but I don't think he's there to be a main eventer. I think for the role that he's in, he's doing very well. It's like not, sports analogy, like not every player on the team starts. Someone has to come off the bench. Sometimes the bench players finish the game, like in the NBA. Sometimes you have players on the second line in hockey who actually they're better on the power play, so they play more. I think he's doing his role very well, and has started off his WWE career very well.
I think my last topic for you, and then I'll throw to you if there's anything else you want to add, is just how Dom was utilized tonight and where he is, and also Braun Breaker, which is an interesting match. Darrell says in the chat, tonight to me was a big night for Dom, where they are easing him in to be the new leader of the Judgment Day with Liv and start his raise as a top heel. I think it's also, and Ryan Solorio says Dom did for Liv what Rhea did for Dom. Darrell replied, I wouldn't say that because Dom was hot at the time where they were kind of lost with Rhea and her booking at the time. I think Dom helped both more than they have with him. I thought it was interesting that Dom is at a stage now. It's noteworthy, I guess, better way to put it, that Dom was protected against Braun Breaker. Braun dominated. There's no doubt in anyone's mind watching Braun Breaker would have beat Dominic if not for shenanigans and interference, but he didn't. They didn't go there. They did the DQ ending, and that means they still are protecting Dom, but they want to get a bunch of heat on him. But it's interesting to put Dom as a heel against Breaker, and Breaker still in kind of this gray, pick whether you like him or don't like him. He's this dominant anomaly at this point, a force that can't be stopped. He's not obviously a Cody Rhodes babyface, but he's also not a Gunther heel. So kind of your thoughts on what you extract or extrapolate in terms of what WWE's tried to tell us about both Dom and Braun with what we saw tonight.
I was like, is Braun a babyface now? I thought he was a heel. I mean, I feel like he needs to be, he wrestles a style that people are going to cheer. And if that's the case, then just make him a babyface and leave it at that. And, if you want to turn him heel down the line when he maybe gets pushed up the card, that's one thing. But when you have him kind of basically almost single-handedly beat up 3 people, he's a babyface. I think Dom is definitely taking the lead. I think his character has emerged from he was just sort of like Rey Mysterio's son who was there, to then Rey Mysterio's punk son, to, you know, his allegiance with Rhea, to now being not just an average person of the Judgment Day. I think they're setting up, and it might be a while, him versus Finn Balor. Maybe this new member are in the fallout from that. Maybe they have to wait until JD McDonough comes back from his injury. But yeah, I think he's progressing really well from someone who people just kind of thought he was there almost as a Nepo baby. But he's playing a key role on the show every week. So he's doing really well.
Chris, anything else you want to bring up that might be in your notes or on your mind about tonight's show?
Just one last thing. I like the Sami Zayn sit down.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yep,
we didn't cover that. Like a real person, and I love in wrestling when you can show that to someone. You know, my wife walked in the room. She has nightmares from Roads to the Top. So Cody Rhodes, he was like, I can't believe it's that guy. But if she saw the Sami Zayn promo, she would have definitely. I could explain that to her, because that sounds like someone who's like, I have issues with this person. I'm so angry at him that he has made me stoop to levels that I didn't think in my character I would do. And I did something that I'm ashamed of myself for, but I'm going to take that out in the ring. I also don't get the unsanctioned aspect. It's like, if you want it to be unsanctioned, have them fight in a parking lot. Don't have it in the ring and all that. If you really want to be unsanctioned, then you can have plausible deniability. Other than that, I really like the promo and sort of his persona and what he was presenting. Yeah,
the idea of Sammy going, oh, you come to my house, KO, I'm going to your house. And then he bumps into Kevin Owens' mom, and they just sit down and share old time, talk about old times. It was like, and then Sammy just being ashamed that what could have happened had KO been home and his mom just wasn't hanging out there. Sammy just, he's at his best when he comes, he's at his best when he comes across as a real person. I think a lot of wrestlers are at their best when they come across more grounded as a real person, and kind of pick their spots for the bombast and the intense emotional reaction to things. So we'll just close with a couple chat room comments. As Goodfellow 1422 had pointed out, digital exclusive had Logan Paul talking smack to AJ Styles. I don't hate that. Jason D from Australia chimed in once. He said, everyone knows that Cody is Triple H's champion. How would he be different under The Rock? What does selling your soul actually mean? Rock's character isn't as diabolical as Vince. And Kyle Fassel says they could have introduced what a corporate champ means in a negative way in that promo or prior to it. And Rude Dog regarding the Logan Punk match. I don't think I read this. Boxing used to be more popular than wrestling, so it made sense to have gimmick boxing matches on WrestleMania. Now, not as much. And then Kyle Fassel said, back to Rock, The Rock explaining why he wants Cody's soul exactly could have had it make more sense. He could have said money doesn't fulfill him anymore. Followers don't fulfill him. He needs more. So Rock could have made it a little bit more about him. Any thoughts on any of those last few comments, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. Elimination Chamber will be very interesting to see how they sum up The Rock and how Cody's reaction and how things play off it.
Very good. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back Wednesday night after Dynamite, but in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast. Search Wade Keller in your podcast app to subscribe for free to the Blue Logo Show and the Red Logo Show. This is Red Logo Show. Our shows go up on podcast format for Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. That also includes some flashback shows going back 5, 10, and 15 years. And then tomorrow, the flagship will go up late on Tuesday. You have a chance to still send in your emails. wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. Greg Parks will be joining me, and we'll cover a wide array of topics, WWE and AEW primarily, but perhaps some other areas too, LFG, TNA, NXT, whatever. So the flagship usually hits a broad array of topics. You can add to that and steer us and guide us and add to the show, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. While you're subscribing to podcasts, be sure to check out the PWTorch Daily Cast and search Wade Keller in your podcast app, including Wrestling Coast to Coast, and different show each day of the week. Certainly worth subscribing to for free. And if you want to support us and not just have the free shows with the ads, but have the free shows without the commercial breaks. We skip right past those in our VIP version, plus ton of other exclusive content. Get a 7-day free trial through Spotify or Patreon. Search PWTorch. In either Spotify or Patreon, search PWTorch, and it will bring up a 7-day free trial that will sync on your phone app through Patreon and Spotify, or go full VIP, PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Unlock 35 plus years of archives and get an ad-free website that's desktop and mobile friendly, exclusive content, the weekly Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter in a digital and PDF format, back issues dating back to the late 1980s, all kinds of great perks, and a customizable podcast feed for VIP shows. So you can separate it into current shows and flashback shows. You can subscribe to individual shows on your feed so that you can kind of keep up and stay organized, and when you refresh the shows you want and find the latest and stay organized. So a lot of perks to going full VIP. Full details on all the options, including, by the way, signing up with your Apple account through the Apple Podcast native app. All the details on that at pwtorch.com/GoVIP. Thanks, Chris. And thanks to our callers. Thanks to our listeners, emailers, everybody. And we will talk to y'all next time.